Hi. Okay. Yeah, I'll tell you a little bit about the Unhosted project. It's a project that started a little bit over a year ago. I took 3 months off work to go on a programming holiday on the tropical island of Bali, and then I made this little project and talked to people about it. And then when I was at FOSDEM 1 year ago, people said, well, you should actually quit your job and continue doing this project. And they convinced me to do that, so that since 1 year I'm now full-time working on my hobby project. And we are now actually 4 people doing that, thanks to donations. So the idea of the Unhosted project is that, the idea behind it is that on the desktop, we have software, we have our files on our hard disk and applications that use those files. Let me see if this works. Right, so this is the desktop, and as you can see, these are the files which are in your home folder, and these are all the programs you use. And it's nice because you can use several programs with one set of files, which is on your computer, so you control it. But on the web, as software is going towards, as more hosted software is being published, and people use more tablets and smartphones instead of computers that have a hard disk with a home directory, we see that more of our data is inside websites, where you use your computer to connect to these websites, and your data is on these websites. As you log in, you get your data there. And that's nice because you can, your data is always there in the cloud, and you can always get back to it. But it's a pity that each website has their own data storage. So if you have photos in one website, or you have a contact list, then usually the data is inside the website, and that creates lock-in so that you're not free to use your data the way you want. So what we propose is a better architecture where the data is in one place, and the applications don't have data in them, that the websites are just applications, and as you use your browser to go to these applications, this doesn't, yeah. So it connects to the remote storage, which is in a different place than the application. So you use your browser to bring together an HTML application and storage, which is on a different server where you control it. That's the basic idea, to separate cloud storage from cloud app logic. So we've been thinking about how we could do that. And it's actually quite simple. You just need cross-origin data storage. Normally in JavaScript, if you run JavaScript in your browser, then it's only allowed to do AJAX calls to the server where the JavaScript came from. So you get data to your browser when you visit a website, and then the JavaScript that runs can make additional asynchronous calls back to the server to get more data in. But cross-origin AJAX is normally not allowed. You have to explicitly allow that for it to work. And we just wrote down a standard of how data storage can be made available for web apps to access it cross-origin. And that's basically all we did. So the main part of it is, well, this is very yellow in this size. The main part of it is that the applications you use on the web are all are written in JavaScript, so client-side JavaScript. So that means that there's no code running on the server, or hardly any code, and the code runs on your machine, where it's decentralized, and you can, in theory, you can see what's running there, and it's not beyond your control. So the next thing you need is WebFinger. WebFinger is a protocol to discover things about a user address. So it's a standardized way to give a short XML file about a certain user address, for instance, an email address. And we use it so that when you go to a website, you put in your email address, and then the website can use WebFinger to discover where your storage is. So through WebFinger, we announce where the remote storage is of a specific user address. And once the JavaScript that runs in your browser knows where your storage is, it can connect to it and get access to it via OAuth. So that means you get a little pop-up or the page changes to your storage where you put in your password and you say, yes, allow this application to access my storage. And then it changes back to the application, or the pop-up closes. And the application has an access token with which it can then do HTTP calls. And your storage will know that it's an application that you gave access to your storage. And the third thing you need to add to a data storage to make it usable cross-origin is cross-origin headers. They're just HTTP response headers that look a bit like this. It's a standard that you can that all browsers support now, and the storage in every HTTP response, the storage server should add these HTTP headers in. And then the website will be allowed by the browser to do this cross-origin AJAX call and will not be restricted by the single origin policy. And then we thought a lot about what the storage, how the storage should then work once the application gets access to the storage. And in the end, what we decided is to do just the simplest thing we could possibly have chosen, which is just get, put, and delete of data blobs. So just a key value store. And that's enough for a lot of things. You can have your address book or your photo albums all in there, and applications can get access to it through a very simple NoSQL model. Yeah, so that together forms the remote storage spec. And so we want storage providers to implement this standard, and we want website application providers to start accepting unhosted accounts where you log in with your email address and the website just checks if you have remote storage connected to your email address. And if you do, then it uses that for your data storage. And if you don't, then it can still accept you as a hosted user on their website and host your data for you. So we've already had Iris Couch is a CouchDB provider that's already compatible through some extra scripts which we developed together with them to use as a remote storage. So if you sign up for Iris Couch, it's a freemium provider. You can get a CouchDB instance for free. You don't pay anything. You just get storage, and then you run these scripts, which we're still polishing them, but we have them nearly ready. So you run these scripts, and then that storage, that CouchDB instance, becomes usable as a remote storage. We're also integrating with browser ID, and we're thinking about other ways in which user addresses can work when people don't have WebFinger. And there's a pilot starting now by Dutch universities, by SurfNet, to give remote storage account to all Dutch students. So that's quite exciting. That's 1 million people that will have. It's not just students; it's also staff, so professors, and it's all universities, and also like higher education institutes. So we're quite excited about that, and we hope that in other countries, people in other universities, if there's any university sysadmins here or other sysadmins, just set up a server somewhere if you have one, and give remote storage to your users. And on the side of the applications, we have 2 applications that we're working on ourselves. One is LibreDocs, which is an alternative to Google Docs, but Libre. And another one is OpenTabs, which is a way to keep a tab of how much money you owe your peers. It came out of an anti-banking discussion. And we're also making a player with which any local storage-based app can be used as an unhosted application. So in HTML5 you have local storage, which is a way for an application to store some data into the browser. And we're making a library with which there are a lot of demo apps like calendar apps and to-do list apps that use local storage. And we are making a player with which it just syncs whatever the app stores in local storage to sync to your remote storage, so that these apps suddenly become usable in multiple browsers. And if you have an application, then obviously please accept unhosted accounts apart from just hosted accounts where people host their data on your server. And we found a number of challenges while we were working on it this year. One interesting conversation that's been going on the whole year has been about end-to-end encryption. In the end, we're focusing a lot on that, on the encryption part. Obviously, once you have remote storage, then you could, where you can store blobs, you can also store encrypted blobs, and that gives you even more control over who gets to see your data. And but now we're not putting so much emphasis on that. We're saying yes, you can do that, but even if you don't do it, it's already useful to get control over where your data is, even if you don't encrypt it. We've been thinking about content addressable data. So the best use case is where you have your own data, like whatever would be in your home folder on your desktop, but for the web, or whatever would be in iCloud on an iPad or an iPhone. And but you could also do BitTorrent-like files, unhosted. That will also be fun. Push notifications. So if I want to send you a message from my unhosted storage to your unhosted storage, and if there's no central data storage, then that becomes a bit harder. So we still need a hub by which we can send each other ping saying, hey, I have this in here in my outbox for you. Come get it when you have the time. And one thing that you can't really do with decentralized, because we're decentralizing all the user data. Normally on a website you have one place where all the user data is. But if everybody has their own unhosted remote storage, then the data of all the users is all over the place. So if you want to do operations on global data, like creating an index so you can search people by name, that simply doesn't go very well. So you still, if you want to do search, then a search function inside an application, then you still need a centralized a search function. So that's sort of this sort of limits what we're working on and what you can do with it. Yeah, and we have laptop stickers. So well, as you walk out, I'll stand by the door and give you each a laptop sticker. Thank you. Do you have time for questions? Yeah. Any questions? Yeah.
Do you support permissions on the access? I have this application now and I only want to read.
Right. Yeah. So the question is, do we support permissions? That's something we're always talking about, and I don't want to, and other people do. Actually, we sort of came together with Read-Write Web, which is a thing that came out of W3C. They're basically doing the same thing, but they're calling it Read-Write Web, and they have a lot of focus on ACLs and that sort of thing. I think it's possible to do it without ACLs. Just use capabilities. So then the file, you just use a long file name, and you only give the file name to the people who you want to be able to read it. And we do have one. We do have a way to. Normally, it's just only you can read and write, but there's one specific flag which you can set to make something public so that everybody can read it. But we don't have groups or anything of that. But there are people who would want us to. But I'm sort of always discussing that with them. Any other questions? Yeah. Yeah, so the question is, it would be nice to replicate data into, so they get more robust and also use, like in a peer-to-peer way. We've definitely thought about that, and whether that should be, so once you say so one thing we thought about, for instance, you could specify multiple addresses where your remote storage is, sort of as just like round-robin DNS. And then you'd have to specify in some way how they sync with each other. Yeah, another thing. There's another thing you could do is have one remote storage which has some index and then goes to a secondary one or have one first one that only has some key files and then one secondary one which has encrypted blobs encrypted with the keys from the small one. So you could run the small one on your phone and the big one on some cloud storage provider. But so yeah, we've always been thinking about that sort of thing, but we haven't really been doing it yet. That's the end, I guess.
Yes.
Thank you.